partly how to make your listing shine, but even more so how to make you shine. Every single one of you in this room is a small business owner, is an entrepreneur, is a sole proprietor, however you want to think about that. Every single one of you in here is a business person. So one of my goals for 2019 is to help you better run and do real estate as a business owner. That means business plans, that means, various other things. And you may think, oh, it's like, I'm doing just fine, flying by the seat of my pants. You're not. You're not. Because every single one of us in here would probably like to make, anybody in here want to make more money? Anybody want to make more money than anybody last year? Anybody?
I'd love to.
All right, anybody want to make less? Okay, so if you want to make more money, I've got some tips for you. And part of it is to really focus in on running it like a business, thinking it like a business. And in doing so, like if you've got, we've all, love coffee shops. If you love a coffee shop and you want to go to a coffee shop and you go up there and you show up and the coffee shop says it's going to open at 6 and you get there at 6:15 and they're not open yet. Do you think of them as a very good business? No. And if you get there and they're out of coffee or they're out of muffins or whatever it is that you wanted to get, you don't think, and you may write even a review about the fact that you showed up at 6:15 at your favorite coffee shop and it didn't have coffee. It was what they didn't have your favorite coffee. It was cold. They didn't have muffins. They weren't prepared. They were a bunch of curmudgeons and other kinds of things. So I don't want that to happen to you. I want all of you folks to shine whenever you're doing your various different things. And we've said in real estate for many years, and here for about everybody, listings will get you more listings and will get you more buyers. So we all want buyers, we all want listings, we all want more listings, and if you get more listings, then you get more buyers. So the better you do on your listings, the easier it is to get a bunch of the other stuff that you really want to get, which helps you make more money, which you've already established. Amanda, do you want to make more money next year? Yes. Okay, you want to do that question? I thought you did. Because you signed up for the contract coaching thing. You've already figured out how much you want to make next year. Which is part of what's going to help her as a small business owner achieve that, because she can back into how do I get to that number. And one of Amanda's goals on that is to get more listings. And to get more listings, one of them is you get one and you just do so awesome with it that other people want to list properties with you. So one of the tools that I use so I do this one little online kind of more of a marketing type coaching thing called the Paperless Agent, and they have a tool kind of their marketing thing. And so I borrowed that, and I made it better, in my opinion. Better because it's better for me. If it's better for me, then it's going to work, because I'm more likely to use it. I've given this to Lauren, shared it with her to use for one of her listing appointments in Memorial. Allison that used it for her 1448 Arlington. We've got other folks that have used it. I created it kind of with the overall Boulevard Realty in mind. You can do, you can tweak it if you want to. And then Thomas actually created a presentation form of this that I could actually go and present. I took this to my 1343 Alston listing appointment, and I think it's part of one of the reasons why I got the listing. But it also just helps you plan. A big focus on what we're going to talk about today is how to help plan so that your listings have the greatest amount of impact, and you have a greater likelihood of holding on to the darn things and keeping the other people away that may be, not supposed to, but maybe going around trying to grab a listing or something like that. We sometimes say, it's better to be the second agent, but sometimes it's better just to be the damn first agent and sell the thing. So I want to help you do that.
I like that.
That is better.
It is better to just be the best first agent.
That's cool, but if you can be the first agent, you can sell it. That's even the best. That's even the best. Because it not only helps you make more money, but it also helps you get more listings, because then your ratio that we talked about a few weeks ago about know your numbers, it helps your ratio of, what's my listing to sales ratio. because that, because if you have that will help that ratio increase, which will also help you get more listings. So it really is, it's planning, it's a numbers, it's a very different thing. So what I created here was like, you put the listing address in there, the marketing plan. I like to put their name. So they know, hey, I created this just for you. And what we talked about is, as you go through, as you've gone through, potentially you may have done, this may be your second time to go to the listing appointment. But even if it's your first, there's other things that you could do. You could even leave this blank, this space blank, and jot some things down. You might say, as we walk through your house, some of the things that I observed is some of the things that we talked about that you were planning on doing, or that I'm suggesting is maybe prepping your house, to get ready to go on the market. In the case of Austin, it was, let's paint some of these interior rooms. She painted the exterior, she had painted the exterior a number of years before, and so we just talked about power washing the exterior. But we talked about painting some of the interior rooms. My preference would have been to paint the whole house, but I wasn't going to get her to do that. I certainly was going to be able to do this. And we talked in some of the other things that I've done, and you guys, any of you who would come to me for negotiation type stuff, know that sometimes you ask for all this, just so you can get this. So those negotiation things don't just happen once you get something under contract, or you're trying to get it under contract. You're negotiating with sellers and with buyers all the time, just like everything else. So one of the things we did was we made a list. Okay, here. So because part of what it is, it's a teamwork effort. I tell my listeners, hey, this is a team effort. We're going to do this together. I need you to do certain things. I'm going to do certain things. We're going to put all this in together to get this ready. So, so here's the prep. So put together the prep, the thing that she was going to do to get ready to put the house on the market. And then, if you would please maybe scroll up just a little bit.
Sure.
Or what I did was I wanted Tim, over here, is that easier for you to see?
It's not on you. It's showing the screen.
Okay. So then what I did, let me just give them a, so what we have in here is about a 4 to 5 week plan of things that we're going to do from a standpoint. And you'll see that it actually, it takes us to get into the second week before we're ever launching that sucker. There's a number of things that we're doing prior to that. We are, the sellers getting things ready. I always put in there, I want you to give me a list of the updates and amenities. We walk through the house and they tell me a number of things. But if I have them put together a list, they're going to give me more stuff than what I probably would get otherwise. I often would take a list that I put together for other listings. And you've done a great job of putting a lot of those lists and stuff together. So if I give them a list, hey, here's what I use for another listing to help you see what you may want to put down on here. And I tell them, hey, either take, depending on how you think, take a sheet of paper and put it in several rooms, jot those things down, or grab your phone and dictate it to me, send it however you want to me. But I put that on. That's one of their responsibilities. And then I like this description that the payroll agents guys use. We're going to start creating the marketing narrative and the lifestyle story for the property, the location, and the neighborhood, and we're going to draft it for the client input. Often when we put these listings up, we're in such a hurry to get them done. We just throw out any kind of description that we can. We're thinking it's the best. If we're really lucky, we've got an opportunity to get Frank to get involved and tweak it or write it for us. And then we send it out and we launch the thing, and then the seller comes up and says, yeah, I don't like the way that sounds, or I don't think how this is done, or whatever. So I always tell them, hey, I'm going to put this thing together, and I'm going to get your input on it ahead of time. This is a good point to talk about it. Bill talks about this all the time when he meets with his clients. I would do the same thing. You guys may or may not, but I right now empower every single one of you in here to say no.
Yeah.
To say no to your clients and to tell them, I'm going to tell you no. You're not always going to like it, but I'm going to tell you no. But when I tell you no, I'm going to tell you why I'm going to tell you no. And so sometimes it might be when you put that description together and you send it to them, and they say, no, I want to say this. You can say, no, it has been my experience that buyers tend to, I want to talk less about the neighborhood and more about, I can't think of it, culture marble countertops. Like, well, your culture marble countertops were lifted in 1990. maybe in the 80s when they were done, maybe 1990, but once we got to that number, the 2000, they were no longer cool anymore. And it has been my experience that buyers are looking as much for lifestyle as they are for the amenities and things of the house. And what I'll do though is when we do the pictures, I will go into more detail about this particular aspect of your backsplash or something along those lines. So I'll power up this morning and say no, and go and tell your client, I'm going to tell you no. Part of what telling them no does is it tells them that you know what the best thing is, and that sometimes it's going to mean that I'm going to tell you no, but there's a better way. Or, you might say, yeah, hey, I hear what you're saying, and it's been my experience. So you say no without actually saying the word. To get around it. So we talked about the first week. We're going to do the updates list. We're going to put together the description of the property. We're going to take the photos, map of the area attractions. We'll kind of get into, as we go through this timelines and stuff, to really think about that. But, I like to put together a map of area attractions and a montage of pictures of area attractions, because again, it is about quality of life when you're selling these properties. You're selling us about the area and what they can do. And then I kind of like to tell them, hey, sometimes if you have like some cool features, I might even use some photos or teasers on social media. I might take a picture of a light fixture or of some part of the backyard kitchen or something like that, and put up there with a little teaser thing. So what that also tells them, that I'm going to be doing this, or if you're going to be doing that, is that we're going to give them some hints. We're actually kind of starting to market the properties too, just a little bit. So while you're waiting for this week and doing all this work, because usually if they decide they want to go with you, they're ready to jump in, and like I give them right away. And that's certainly an area where you have permission to say no, because we're never going to get the splash that we do as when we first launch a listing. So let's get it all right. I'm going through this right now with West 26th Street. We redid the countertops and we're doing the appliances, and we have a glitch now with well, one, it's going to take 2 weeks to get the appliances, and he was ready to market his house by the side. I'm going to get it back on the market. And I said, no, I don't think so. And I ran some numbers. I ran some numbers and I said, in 2018, in your price range in your area, 10 houses went under contract. In 2018, in March, in February, 10 houses went under contract. In March, 20 houses went under contract. So if we wait 2 weeks for your prices, we're not missing. We're getting right there in the middle of, we may still be in front of part of that, but we're getting right there where that stuff is. Where the buyers are coming back in the market and that kind of stuff. And that helped him get there. Helped him get to that point. And I talked a little about, hey, we might even be able to take the price up a little bit more than we did last time, because of the activity. So that's the first week. And then the second week, we talk about, you got your listing and your photos are loaded. I usually, when you get into detail in this, actually, we need to keep doing this. I usually like to take 2 or 3, I like to allocate 2 or 3 days or so by the time I get photos and to actually get the listing up. To write the descriptions, to write the photo captions, to look through the photos, pick which ones I want, allow for the time that they may all suck, and I may not like, I might not hate all of them, but I've hated them. Sometimes I call and say, did you not get any shots of the backyard? I got the side yard, but this is a huge lot with a beautiful garden, and you got nothing. So did you decide not to send them to me, or did you not get them, or whatever? But I'm not sitting there at 9 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden I need to get the listing on, and I want it on by the next morning, and I realize I don't have all my shots. So I like to allocate 2 or 3 days to go through the photos, do my descriptions, maybe have Frank keep my stuff, figure out what order I want to put them in. Somewhere in this time frame here with the area attractions and stuff, I may go get pictures. I haven't one of our timeline things. I may go get pictures, especially if it's a listing in the area where I haven't done as much business. Like 26th Street, I'm familiar with Shady Acres, but I haven't done as much. over there as I have in the Heart of the Heights or Oak Forest or some other things. And so I went and got some other area attractions. When I listed the house on Tannen Hill in Timber Grove, I went and got a number of those things. Those pictures also helped me with some of the Facebook advertising that I did, because I talked again about the quality of life. Things like one example, one of the things I did in Tannen Hill was Frank and I ran an ad on all the things that you could do from Tannen Hill, all the restaurants and the biking and the breweries and the farmers market and various other things that you could do. You didn't even have to go into the Heights. You never had to cross Shepherd. And you could do all the things that people tend to draw to this area, but think they have to come into the Heights to do. And I didn't want them to think they were settling by buying a Timber Grove. So spending part of that time helped me with that. Yes, Jim?
Well, just because, we're so familiar with Area 9 doesn't mean that the people that are coming as buyers know anything about the neighborhood. So, Amanda and I used the 15 things about Brooks Lake that you didn't know.
Right.
And I'm noticing that almost everybody does some sort of listing of all the wonderful things in the neighborhood where they're listing us.
Right, exactly.
Which is good. So, I mean, like if I'm gonna do something in Shady Acres, I'll just go to Frank and he goes, we'll pull an old list and, each week it can make it look new, fresh and original.
Exactly. And what I want you to do is to make sure you build into your timeline of when you're gonna launch that listing so you have time to do that. I don't want it to be an afterthought. Again, you're running a business. You're running a business. You're a sole proprietor here, or you're an entrepreneur, you're running a business, so you want to make sure you plan for it. Yeah.
Talking about photos again, do you recommend a professional for everything? Do we need these photos for marketing?
I use professional photo. Well, no, that depends on what I can find.
Okay.
That depends on what I can find. So I may go look for area attractions before I ever schedule the photographer. As part of my research for the listing and other things, I may go look for things. So I have a number that I've grabbed.
Okay.
And if I go grab it, I don't grab it from any listing. Then so when I do an image search, I'll come across these things and it'll say, har.com. You're out. Good as you look. I'm not gonna use that, although I may look at it and go, can I recreate it? Because if I can recreate it, then I'm good.
Okay, so just for like the area stuff, do you always use professional for your listing photos then?
I always use professional photos for my listing photos. I use professional photos for my lease listing photos. I do it for several reasons. One, it looks better. Two, it's easier and faster for me. Three, I can probably reuse them. Because most of the lease listings that I have are folks that I helped buy the house in the first place. And so they're clients of mine, I relist that property, every year, every 2 years or whatever else. And so I may take some new photos, but the tenant stuff may not look good. And so I might use, especially if I have, like I have a cool listing over in Oak Forest, in the west side of Oak Forest, that has a little mid-century modern kind of style to it, and folks who were leasing it had very cool mid-century modern furniture. So I got some in there and took a bunch of those pictures before they get ready to move out. I scheduled something in advance.
And I read something on a book that it says, don't forget that every listing you have is your market.
Yes,
So
that's
it
exactly what I was going to
Good
say.
point.
Right.
It's not, so I
It's
think
not
that
just a lease.
for the way we think
Exactly.
about these leases, just like, oh, well, I'm only going to make $400 on this, so I don't want to spend $100 on photos. But that will show up in your recently sold and your HAR profile for, 18 months or whatever. And so even the Thomas pictures and everything, okay, great in a pinch if it's better than the alternative of an iPhone photo, but it's not a listing. It's not a marketing expense just for this listing. It's for the next listing and the listing after that. It's worth it.
Clients are gonna research for you, they wanna see the quality of these
Yes.
things you produce.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have the professional photographer go take the pictures of the area attractions?
Sometimes.
I have done that.
Yeah.
I have put it in or called them up and asked them to do that, like I need a copy, and sometimes I'll send them something that I
They charge a
found.
little more though, right?
What's that?
They charge a little more.
Yeah,
actually-
it's still better than what I do.
I had one in a property that had an HOA, and so they had a shared pool and stuff like that. And the company I used had taken some stock photos
Yeah.
of the amenities that were available at a discount. So since he didn't have to go reshoot them because they were nice quality, instead of it being, I don't know, $10 a photo, it was like $5 a photo. So
Yeah.
depending on your
It's always worth
photographer,
asking.
if they are on top of it, a lot of times they already have some of that available.
I know.
Yeah.
Right, so you can ask for that, yeah, so that's part of the reason why I spend time to go into the book to see what there is, and I may send them something that says, hey, I want a copy of this. If I find something on Culture Map, or Swamp Lot, or Houstonian Magazine, or whatever else, I credit them in the photo. I'm gonna use that as part of the montage. I'll just put a little credit there that says, photos, courtesy of da 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 da. So far, that's worked fine. I haven't gotten dinged by MLS, and I haven't had any of those publications call me up and go, you need to stop using my photo.
Yeah. But if they did, just take it down immediately.
I'll just take it out. I'll just take it out.
So do you just use it and give them credit, or do you call and ask, or?
I usually just use it and give them credit. That's what I've done so far. I've been fine. I've been doing it for a few years now. Yeah, it works pretty well. I figure in some way, and then again, if I, do a Facebook ad or whatever else, I'll credit them and often will tag them in that photo.
I love that.
So that it helps, helps just drive traffic and stuff to them. But I've even had them one of my things, so I figure.
You know who's really good at this is Star. Star puts in a strong 3 attraction photos at the end of most of her listings, even her lease listings. She's really good at
Yeah.
that. She has a good eye for those.
And the Anhorns have put together a pretty nice
Oh, yeah.
montage. They have about 3 to 5 montage photos of Heights area things. You can't always know exactly what it is, and I don't think they do as great of a job of mentioning, say, hey, here's 19th Street,
Right.
and here's this, I think you could do a much better job from that standpoint. And I think it could be worth maybe having Thomas or one of the photographers go out and capture a number of those things for us, so we can start using those.
Yeah, I think so.
Montage kind of things, quality of life, bike trails, stuff like that, farmers markets.
Yeah. Everybody had 1 or 2 photographers that they really liked that they would go to. So it's like if Mike Wilcox isn't available, have a backup. Everybody feel like you have 2 good photographer options? No? No. So, we do still update that weird spreadsheet that we have.
Vendors.
The recommended vendors. I just updated it with a new one from Jay, just to give you an example.
And I think everyone can edit that, right?
Yes.
Anyone can
So
add
if
to
you
that,
work
yeah.
with somebody that you're like, oh my gosh, this person's great, I would like to give them more business, you can add them to the recommended vendors spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So
And honestly, the newer photographers are hungrier, and so they do a better job. So like, this is the same listing. Look at what Jay. This is not what Jay wanted. This is what Jay wanted. Not what Jay wanted on the next one. This is what Jay wanted, right? And
Same
this is
seconds.
we just added him like last week because Jay's like, this is the photographer I want agents to use or whatever. It's what's his name? He's a realtor.
Is that realtor?
He's a realtor, but Jay is trying to convince him just to become a photographer. His name is Mitchell Cantu. But on this Boulevard vendor recommended vendors list, we have a good, I don't know, like 8 photographers or something like that, that we've all used. I'm trying
And you
to,
run some back agent, you can search.
Yeah.
You can't search from the main page. You can go into the office and then documents and then search for vendors.
and you can see we try to put what they offer to you. So if you need someone
Yeah.
for 3D or Matterhorn or whatever, you
Yeah.
know.
It's not uncommon for Bill to do both Mike Wilcox and TK images these days, because Mike Wilcox is really good at getting you like a large volume of photos of the inside, but his exteriors aren't as strong as a TK images or something like that. He's actually, I think, better with the drone than TK images is, so it is what it is. The Strata guys, I think they're on here. Yeah, they're pretty good. They do it all. They're pretty cheap. And I think they basically do it all. I think they're a good one-stop shop for
They
pretty
do a
cheap.
nice job with the Matterport thing. If you want the video on, the tour, you can click on things and move around or whatever else.
Do y'all have like a listing that, well, I guess I can look at their website and see their samples.
Mhm,
of what they do.
But I think it's good to have two, because I think for a while we were just like, Mike Wilcox, Bill uses Mike Wilcox. And, sometimes it takes them 2 or 3 days to get out. And then that throws up, you could plan all, but if you only have one photographer that you're kind of hinging all of your kind of plans on, then I just think it's good to have a couple.
Purvis using that same photographer, you're not only competing with all the other agents, but with each other.
So this is on Back Agent, everybody. And look, painter, plumber,
Yeah.
portrait photographer.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Can you do the after again? Maybe the before.
Oh, the before. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, dang it! I was so slow. My brain was still processing what you were asking as you said. I'll send it to you.
Okay, so let's go up a little bit.
Okay.
So we talked a little bit the first week, hang on, just a little bit the last one, the second week. So we talked about the second week. Flyers are created for use at the home and digitally. You wanna, we've got a table that kind of talks about the timeline and stuff on that. You wanna make sure you allocate enough time for that. Thomas refers to Friday as Flyer Friday, but it really ought to be his day to kind of put them all together, and he has to spend more time on when he's creating one, and then the office team is arranged really greatly so that if you just have an update on a price change, or Mary Ann's doing an open house for me and popping somebody's photo and contact information in there, they can do those things for you. But you want to make sure that you're allocating enough time for him to do what you want on it. And again, think about it. You've got your one-page flyer. Is that what you want? Or is that what you're just going to take for the first weekend because you didn't allocate enough time to get anything more than just that?
Right. And it's not for the buyers anymore. The flyer is not for the buyers. It's for the seller to scrutinize, and when they're stressed, late at night, to read every single word and look at the photos. The flyer is not really for the buyers anymore. So it's a form of feedback, and it shows them how you're marketing their house. It's not for the buyers.
And it's also a form of advertising. You put that flyer in a flyer box.
Yeah.
Neighbors, various other people who are going to take a look at that. They may be thinking about selling their house and want to see what you're doing. If your flyer looks just the same as it does with anybody else,
Yeah.
Or not as good as that, that's one thing, or like, with 1343 Alston, I not only did the flyer, but we created like a little mini area attractions map on the back of it with some of the different things that you could get to. And some other folks have kind of done that on the back, and they talk about, there are bike trails, and there are this, and there's that, and the parks, and other things. Thomas and I did that for 1911 Milo. It was a 2-pager, and my map of the area attractions was the second page on its own because it was so extensive. But I had parks and community associations and all kinds of information on the back that talked as much about the neighborhood as it did about the property itself. Yes, Jim.
Are you gonna send us that document, please?
Which
Yes.
one? Yeah.
Because I know you sent something, but it was only one page, and it seems that you have.
I added to a little bit for this thing, and then yes, I will. I've created a template that I've shared with the marketing department, so you can get it from me, you can get it from them, and anytime I'll send it. But I will tell you this: anytime I share it with you, what I advise you to do is to make a copy of it, make it yours. We'll make it yours, because if I share it with you and then I share it with Holly, and both of you start editing at the same time, you're screwing each other up.
Make a copy and then do whatever you
Make a
want.
copy and go do whatever you want to do with it. Then it's yours. And then you can easily share it with the marketing department. Thomas took this and made it look all fancy for me. Aaron and I couldn't find it to save our lives, but I presented it.
It was great.
It was great. It helped me.
Good job, Thomas.
I really feel that this helped me win the listing. There were a number of things I think that helped me win the listing. We talked, present some had to do with knowing my numbers, you know, being able to talk about, you know, what the percentage of closing, you know, listing to closing ratio was, and what our, you know, list price to sales price ratio was, and some of those kinds of things. But having this whole plan and talking about what all we were going to do, I think helped me win a listing from somebody who had that. I was going up against somebody who had the property listed when my client bought it, and had the property listed 2 times before.
Yeah.
So she had listed it a couple different times. Bill had listed it before my cousins had actually bought it, but this person had a history with this property of having listed it at least twice, listed and sold it at least twice. And it was a Green County, and so knowledgeable in the heights, and I think that's part of what helped me knock them out of the race was like this kind of.
Yeah. There's another way of doing this too, or there's many ways of doing this. But like today, Wendy, for example, is going to go on a listing appointment. I mean, not a listing appointment. It's like, we got to talk price. We got to get serious. We got to sign something. And she just does a nice little kind of narrative description of this is what I'm going to do, you know, week 1, week 2, week 3. And it's just a couple of things. And it helps her organize kind of how she's going to market it. This is a unique property and probably going to push the market in this area near North Side or whatever. But we can share this, and this is typically what the sort of thing that Bill uses. He'll send it ahead to the seller, you know, this is for your thoughts, this is for your discussion. This is whenever he puts in the bulk of his kind of thinking about what he's going to do, you know, to market the property. Typically, if it's something that's kind of on the higher end or pushing the market or something like that. So there's a couple of different formats that we use.
Another advantage to this is anytime they call you, what are you doing to market? What are you doing to market my house? Or you're just feeling a little anxious, it's like, nothing's happening. I need to do something. Can you send out an e-blast? I just need to do something.
Yeah.
Well, 1, you can go to your plan, and 2, they can go to your plan, and you can talk about, hey, you know, we talk about how this is what we're going to do here, and here, and here, and here. And then, you know, then you can show them the results of some of those things, and you can discuss some of that. So, and in addition, and many of us, you know, will do, so we got a flyer, we'll launch it, we'll talk, you know, we all believe that Thursday is probably the last, if you want to really capture it for the weekend, Thursday is the last day you should list it. Don't list on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. If you list on Saturday and Sunday, you don't have the team here to do the things that you want. You don't have a team here, it's a little tougher to get a flyer. You haven't been able to build the interest for your open house. You haven't been able to do any of those kinds of things. So there's nothing wrong with listing on a Wednesday, but you've got challenges if you and challenges if you're missing the Friday and Saturday and Sunday.
What if your homeowners don't have tenants in the house anymore and they insist that it be listed on Friday?
I would just tell them there's a reason we don't do this. It's not in your best interest. You know, I work for you, but one of the services I provide to you is honest advice. And so I'm just going to tell you, the folks who would be going to see it at the open house, which is what you want this weekend, you want people to go to your open house, they made their list already. You know, they made it on Thursday, and so they're not going to see it today. And then you miss it. And then next weekend, as they plan for their open houses, it's 6 days on the market instead of 1, you know?
And also, if someone just moved out, I mean, do you need to get additional photos to refresh it? Do you have photos taken with a tenant in it?
No, they just renovated it and we're taking photos, but I'm just curious if it's a total no-go or.
Bill does things his sellers want him to do all the time, even though he tells them it's against his best advice. But as long as they know this is my best advice. And
part of the fiduciary duty, if you guys remember, is obedience. That's one that we tend to forget. Yeah. But I think this is a time to prove your value and say, hey, I am the expert. I'm not just saying this because I don't want to do it. I'm saying it because I'm putting your best interest above anything else. Right. And this is what's going to make you successful. And exactly what Erin said, everyone is so sensitive to days on the market that having a few extra days, if you're not 100% ready, and you just won't get as many people as you could if you aren't prepared, you know. But if they say you have to do it, then yeah. But
if you have to do it on Friday as opposed to Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
Do it early. early. Like
People are
if
looking.
you've got the lunch, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And what you can also tell them is that, hey, if you have planned in advance, if you know that you're just gonna have to list it on Friday, if you planned in advance of that, you've already talked and worked with Frank on creating a Facebook ad that's gonna launch on Friday with a theme list. And you're ready just to pull the trigger on it as soon as you got it. If you've got flyers in the thing, you've got photos that have been taken, you've got your descriptions written and your photo captions, and you've already started the MLS listing, you have saved this incomplete, and all you gotta do is 1 or 2 things to drop it in there. It's probably not necessarily the end of the world. But if you're going to have to create all of those activities on that Friday, I mean, it would be, Super Bowl ads are one of the biggest things that those folks don't figure out the day or two before what ad they're going to run and how they're going to do it.
My other question would be,
So
if
that's
you,
what you tell your seller. I'm not saying that's what
Yeah.
you would do. I would say that's what you tell your sellers. Like, hey, I want to make sure
Yeah.
I do these things for you in an adequate amount of time frame.
my other question is, when do they tell you they want it listed? Is it Friday, or are they saying like Wednesday, hey, I want it listed Friday? I mean, typically it's not like, very seldom is it like that particular moment. So if they're like, I need it listed Friday, they're moving out Friday, say, well, let me go ahead and put it on today, which is Wednesday, and we'll just have no showings until the tenant moves out. I mean, that's way better than getting it on a Friday, in my opinion. So you have a couple of options, but I think you really show your value when you kind of guide them to the way that's going to be the best for them.
Jay is our shining star in a lot of ways, and she always lists on a Wednesday, at the very latest, and then has no showings until the open house, or until after the open house or whatever. So that still gives her some time to have the seller do little things around the house, even though it was already listed and the open house has been scheduled for 4 days or whatever.
Because one of the things I told my 26th Street when he said, hey, I don't want to wait for the appliances, the 2 weeks for the appliances. I said, I advise you to do this. Here's the thing. Here's the information. Here's the stats. What I will do for you in the meantime is I'm going to post this on my runpower.com site so that we can build some stuff. I'll go ahead. I can run some Facebook advertising because I can link over to that site. So even though your property is withdrawn, I can link over to that site. I can do various other things and activities to continue to build some momentum and get the word out about your property. And I can even go show it. I'll go show it. So I can take them through what you've done and what the plan is and show them the appliance packages and that kind of stuff. I don't trust other agents to do it because they're just trying to sell a house to that buyer. I'm trying to sell your house to that buyer. So it was a way of saying yes, but slightly different. I'm kind of good at that. Okay, so, and I usually do a Facebook ad, there's open house for the opening weekend announce, and I usually do a Facebook ad for the new listing and the open house launch. And one of the things that I think about with that Facebook ad, Frank can tell you, I spend quite a bit of time in conversation with them. Sometimes it's maybe a 10-minute conversation, but the time of conversation with them about who is the target market. Who do I think is the ideal buyer for this house? Or the moment I walk into a house, or I get a listing on the thing, I start thinking about who do I think is the ideal buyer. And the ideal buyer may not end up being who I think it is, but it helps me target the advertising. What's that? Yes.
My client wants to list on Monday the 4th, March 4th, and I said, we should list on the 2nd, which is a Thursday, and she's like, Monday the 4th is a good day for astrology reasons for us. Astrology reasons.
Oh, and honestly, I think
Sounds pretty
Monday's
legit.
better than
I think
Thursday.
Monday's better than
I say if you're prepared, why not?
She's trying to
But
sell it
maybe
at stores.
no.
There we go.
no showings
Okay,
until-
that's number 4.
You should have said psychic. Okay, there you are.
But actually, one thing I wanted to tack on to what Rhonda was saying about Frank getting together this ad. These guys have never been to this house.
Never been to the house.
You guys are the experts. So you can't just say, here's this house, make it pretty with words. They've never been there. They don't know the stuff that's important and things like that. They don't have the time.
Yeah.
It's not their job to go to this house and check it out. You have to bring the details that you need highlighted. So you got to, give them the tools to make it successful. Like Rhonda goes and she says, this is my target buyer. Well, you know who the target buyer for your listings are because you ran the comps and all this other stuff. You know the neighborhoods. So
You look for the area attraction.
you look for the area
so-
attraction. So you have to bring more details to them if you want your marketing to be successful.
Yeah, and that's true for the captions too. Is
Yeah.
like some features list. It doesn't have to sound this nice or whatever, but Frank is brilliant. He's a wonderful wordsmith. He has an English degree from Wake Forest, very talented and nice guy. So he'll do what you tell him to. But if he's never been to the house, you're doing everybody a disservice. You're doing a disservice to your seller. You're doing a disservice to yourself.
What is the thought process of thinking, what is my targeted buyer? How do you?
So I think from a targeted buyer standpoint, so let's say, let's say my tentative, just because that's a little bit different. So my tentative, I thought about, if you can target first-time home buyers for the price range in that area and size, et cetera. But because I knew the area attraction, so I put farm people who are interested in farmers markets. I put that in there. People who are interested in breweries, in craft beer. I put that as one of the interests in my ad. I put, certainly updated houses and it wasn't really a mid-century modern, but I kind of put, that time, those were that time frame. I put, I put, bike, if you were interested in biking, we were interested in urban lifestyle. Urban is a very, very big thing, so I make sure anybody interested in urban living, urban lifestyles. You can target certain areas. I made sure the map, wasn't too terribly big. I didn't want to go too far outside the loop, but people who might be interested in oak forest and those areas would also still be interested in timber. There's a lot of similarities between that. So I just thought about, not only what are the characteristics and the features of the home, but what will people may be interested in doing in this area. And part of this has to do with just doing business here and living here and socializing here myself. But that you could also just, I've Googled a neighborhood before, when we go Google Willow Meadows or something and figure out, okay, what kinds of things pop up? Are there certain restaurants? Are there certain, farmers markets? Or are there people talking about parks? Are they talking about bike riding? Are they talking about various other things? So that I could talk about that kind of stuff too. And then that particular listing, one of those things I had in Willow Meadows on Creek Bend, she had a garden in the background that could feed a family of 10 on any given day. And the lovely flowers at the front that were all native, and butterflies came in, and various other things, all kinds of cool stuff, and target ads from those different standpoints. The people who bought the house said, this is all very lovely, we're probably not going to be able to keep it living. Last time I drove by there, I was maybe right. It doesn't look, it didn't look as good as it did.
I'm sure they tried.
So once you have established the targeted market, and then you go on Facebook or you send your flyers out, you go in for specific zip codes, right?
Not necessarily. You could drop a pin and say, I'm going to go out 1.5 miles or something like that. Your typical Heights listing Facebook ad only goes out, you drop a pin at, I was about to say Reagan, Heights High School, and you go out 2.25 miles, which takes you just outside 610, just outside I-10 or whatever. And that's tens of thousands of people, because it's not only people who live here, it's people who visit here. They looked at a house recently and they stopped for a cup of coffee at Down House, then Facebook tagged them as a visitor to the Heights. That's kind of how it typically goes, is you choose a little area.
I love it.
Yeah. I just want to say too, it's good in this period before you listed of thinking of the story of who is going to buy the house or whatever, and thinking about how there's some things that you can't as an agent say, but your sellers can. And so, have them in our experience, these, this is a family home. Like, this is a good example, because they're like, oh, it's all families and the kids are out playing and everything like that. You cannot say that, but they can. And typically, believe it or not, it sounds less like a chore to them than as value to them if they have some homework like this to come up with a letter. They love it. They love writing the story. They love doing something. Tell them, you don't have to make it sound pretty. We just want to hear things from you. And then in Bill's listings, oftentimes he'll say, put in quotes from the seller of, seller loves walking to, or homeowner loves walking to Presidio or something before it burned down. So I would think of these homeowner letters as a good tool. And then again, Jenny had her, I think the same listing here on Curry or whatever. She had them just come up with the features list. They don't have to make it sound pretty or just whatever, but what do you know about the house? Because Jenny can't know unless they tell her, and Frank can't know unless Jenny tells Frank.
Right.
And so this is part of that
Buyers
first
can't know
week.
unless you tell them either in this or in your open house or in your flyers or various other things.
And after it's been on the market for 30 days, just is probably not the time to do it. So we'll put these in a folder for you as examples.
That's part of that whole prep.
And when I tell my sellers, it's really, nobody is gonna sell this house better than yourself.
Yes.
Really, you love this house, so tell me why you love the house, and why you bought it.
Right.
Maybe,
Right.
Yeah.
And that also helps you establish a connection with them, and it shows that you're listening to them, so that when you take that and you regurgitate it back out and various other things, it says that there's a connection. You value what they're saying, and you listen to them, and everybody wants somebody who listens to them.
Yeah.
So let's get, we're running out of time this year, so I want to hit on this kind of quick. So in week 3, and talk about various things we're going to do to kind of promote the property. And week 4, I'll talk about other things we're going to do to market it. Week 5 is when we really kind of get into it. Let's evaluate the game plan. That's the opportunity that's when you kind of really we need to reassess. We need to reassess marketing, pictures, advertising, price,
Remodel.
Okay, we've got enough feedback that the blue kitchen is just not cutting it. So we've got an estimate, let's go paint it. Or the countertops, are not, like in 26, the countertops are not cutting it, so let's go do it. And then we scroll up just a little bit more. And one of the other things that I talked about early on is feedback. When am I going to give you feedback? I'm going to give you feedback on a weekly basis. I'm going to give you feedback every single Tuesday. I'm not going to give you feedback on Monday because I'm not going to have feedback on Monday. I don't want to waste your time. I want to be your best reflective of your particular time so we can talk about various other things. I want to make calls. I want to look at things. There's the market insight report. That's going to give them a lot of information, but I also want to tell them things like what went under, the market insight may tell them what went under contract, but I want to tell them what fell out of contract, what came back on the market. I want to tell them what expired, what terminated, what's been withdrawn, what's had a price reduction. You can see some global kind of picture more of price reduction on market insight. But I want to tell them those kinds of things. I want to tell them that, hey, I gave you a brief, and that's what I do for the open house. I have somebody else host, I may give them a brief thing that says, okay, there were 10 groups that came through the open house. The feedback overall was pretty good. I'll give you more details in our feedback on Tuesday.
Yeah.
But so I tell them, what we're going to have. We're going to have weekly communications from me. You're going to have these kinds of things. You're going to have recommendations. So that when we get to that time period of 30 or 45 days on the market, and we know it's time to make a change, potentially time to make a change, we can talk about that. We can also talk about, like one thing we did with Tannenhill, is we had the thing on the market for about 30 days. They were expecting things to go pretty quickly because they had been doing that in the summertime, they'd done that the year before, etc. And when we had theirs on the market, it was a little bit, things just kind of slowed down a bit. So one of the pieces of feedback I gave them was, nobody's buying any houses in Timber Grove in this price range period.
Right.
Not one single listing has gone under contract in the 30 days we've had your house on the market. So your buyers are not going to buy another house. They're not buying anything. It's not necessarily what you want to hear when you got 2 mortgages and
Sure.
you're ready to sell your house and you thought you were going to be done with it in 30 days. Mm-hmm. But it's information, and it's information that they weren't getting on that market insight, and it's information that other agents weren't necessarily going to tell them. Yeah. And I had a little bit of a tough case because The second agent that they considered for the property that they didn't actually interview lived next door.
Yeah.
And sold the house down the street and got multiple offers and sold it for, I had a client that bought my Camilo listing that had made an offer on that house $11,000 over this price and didn't get it.
Yeah.
So I do take my being a entrepreneur, being a small business owner as a serious thing. I do run it as a business, but I had to make sure I did that as a business because there was my competition right next door watching what was going on and that kind of stuff. So.
And let's be honest, I mean, we just spent an hour talking about how to market a listing, but it's 99% time and price, right? And so feedback just keeps you in the game and it gives you some knowledge and helps you keep the listing throughout this time. We've had this 1050 Heights listing that Marianne showed yesterday for some reason, for like 4 years or something like that, 3 years, something. And Bill's feedback to them is just so tailored toward just, their situation. Dish Society opened up a couple of weeks ago. And so that's going to bring more foot traffic through and everything. I mean, that's how we keep these listings. It's very it's an ongoing conversation that's very tailored to them. And so just signing them up for the market insight report, that's like a baseline. And all the e-blasts and the Facebook ads, and you get data from that you can tell them, hey, this is what I did, but this is also what I think. And we just find that's what people really want to hear, what you think. And they want to know what you are observing more than just get some numbers and all that sort of stuff. If something sold, they want you to tell them why that sold and theirs didn't. That's typically the feedback that he's giving to his people.
And if you preview, if you preview that, I preview the listings that are, if they come up in the market where I have a listing, I'm going to go preview when that comes on the market so I can have a conversation with them and tell them, hey, we thought this, you may have looked at this listing and thought this was going to be a big competition to you, but I went and checked it out, and those pictures make that thing look like a gem, and it is not.
Right.
It may be a diamond, but it's certainly still in the rough. Or we got to now really talk about that price because I just was over here. And sometimes I tell them, sometimes I'll even send them a thing, hey, there's an open house on Sunday. Why don't you go check it out for yourself? Because I've already been in there and I want you to go see what they're looking and talking about. I often have the market insight report come to them on a Monday so they get something so they can review it. So they'll be ready to ask them questions on Tuesday that they may not have known to ask. And I don't want to spend so much time looking at something that they can look at. I want to give them more information. Different things that we talk about, like some of the stuff you can find from the GEMS map, some of the things, elsewise that are going on, capital improvement projects, whatever else. Those are things that you can bring to them as additional information in weekly meetings that they can't get from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Probably not going to get from another agent.
I was wondering, this is after the fact that you have a listing, you're trying to put that on MLS and there's a prep and all that.
Yeah.
How do you score a listing?
I took this on my listing appointment.
Before they decided to go with you.
Because I wanted to know,
Rhonda's actually doing role playing tomorrow. And I think that would be a great opportunity to practice that scope. I know we're running close on time and we want to be respectful.
Yeah.
So I think that you should come tomorrow because
I would love to be part of that,
because that's really where I think you'll get that benefit. And then
But this helps you do justify your commission.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
If they see if you're doing all this stuff, she still did ask me about reducing it, but I said, let's go take a look at the marketing plan again. I want to review with you. But the first thing I said to her, I smiled and I said, I often get asked that question. You can't blame me for asking that question. No, I do not discount my commission. Let's go review everything and do a marketing plan. And maybe it's right. Maybe what we need is let's review that in more detail because I think it sets us apart from what other firms do.
Mm-hmm.
So I said no.
Yeah.
I said no, and she smiled when I said no. So basically, it was kind of like I need to ask this, and that's all. That's all fine. That's all fine to do.
I think everyone should just be aware that expect everyone to ask for a discount.
Everyone's an ass.
And
Just get used to it.
just get used to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had a client and I sold his house, and every time I saw him, he asked me for a discount while it was listed. And I told him every single time, nope, sorry. And this is the reasons why not. Still sold the house, still charge 6%, you know, like you just have to be, people are just gonna ask. I would like to run through my list for like 2 minutes, but
Yes,
can
sure.
you
I'd like to
can
get
you
those
mention,
lists as well.
just, I don't know, the best times to send out an e-blast?
Yes,
Just
yes.
real quick.
So e-blast versus like, let's say a Facebook ad. E-blasts are free, so they're easy to do. But your audience for an e-blast is a realtor. So you gotta think, when you're going to it's like going to a broker open house, except you're hosting one for a whole bunch of other people and you don't have to feed them. So that's kind of what an e-blast is. An e-blast is like having a broker open house. So you're talking to agents.
Which one do you want?
There, if you have something really great to tell them, if you've launched a new listing, yeah, it might be good to go ahead and do an e-blast because you're pulling your listing out of the big list of hot sheets. So that could be a potentially good thing to do.
Yeah.
If you have a price reduction, if on West 26th Street, I'm going to do an e-blast because we got brand new countertops and stainless steel appliances.
Yeah,
And so that thing's gonna, get better than what you had before. But you gotta consider that an e-blast audience is realtors. And even though it's quick to turn it around, and even though it's free to do it, it may not be the best thing for your listing or for your sellers. Don't do it just so you can tell your seller that you did something, because you're running a business here. Don't just make the coffee at that coffee shop, just so you say you make coffee, you want it to be hot coffee, you want it to be the best coffee, you want it to have the best, you want to make it the best way that you can, the best water and various other kind of things.
Sorry, one thing I wanted to interject with the e-blast, like we send little reports and there's a lot of unsubscribe rates. So if you send e-blast because it's new to the market, well, they have a hot sheet. They know it's coming on the market. They have safe searches. They know it's coming on the market. So you get more unsubscribes if you just send it to send it. You know what I mean? So make sure, like Rhonda said, it has a green
unsubscribe for all
set.
of us.
Yeah.
They don't just unsubscribe to your e-blast. They don't unsubscribe to your e-blast. But Lauren and Kathleen and Holly and Jenny can still send out an e-blast. When they unsubscribe to yours, they unsubscribe to the Boulevard Books e-blast. So if you're going to have I would say wait, if you have a new listing, and do it when you're gonna have a broker open house. So announce, I'm having this and I'm having this event, because then that sets you apart from something you find out on that. Facebook ads don't necessarily cost that much. You can start out as low as $10. You can go to about, you can go to more than you want. I found a sweet spot around 50, but it doesn't mean that you can't go get something for $10. And so you may have to, and your audience there are the people who are going to buy a house. The audience there are also the people who may list a house. They may see something, but they're not in the market for the house that you're promoting, but they're in the market to sell their house. So you reach a greater audience for a greater amount of things that you want to do. So you're reaching buyers, and that buyer may think, hey, you know what, I don't want to buy that house, but this person is listing a house in an area in which I want to buy a house. I tell them when I'm hosting an open house, hey, you hear sellers all the time interviewing 2 or 3 agents to figure out who's going to list their house. Rarely do you hear buyers talk about I'm interviewing 2 or 3 agents to see who's going to help me buy my house. But oh my gosh, isn't it just as important that you have an agent that you know and trust and experience? So I tell them I use open houses as an opportunity as an interview to interview 4 or 5 agents who you may want to use to buy your house or help you buy a house. And I tell them, you want somebody who's experienced in the neighborhood. You want somebody who knows the difference between East Sunset Heights and West Sunset Heights, East Oak Forest and West Oak Forest. Who wants to pay East Oak Forest prices in West Oak Forest? Anybody? No, nobody wants to let your buyer do that too. So you want to tell them those things. I tell them, you want somebody who knows the difference between this versus that. You want them to be experienced, know the area. But and I tell them, hey, the 2 most important things that you want is you want to trust them, and you want to be able to spend an hour in a car with them. Because if you're not willing to spend an hour in a car with them, you're probably not going to want to tell them the things that as a buyer you probably really need to discuss. It's very important because it means you're just not comfortable with them.
And we'll have more buyer trainings,
Yes.
I think, in March.
Yeah.
Yes. So, real quick, if you're finished, I know it's getting past 11.
Yeah, I want to do that. I want to hit some of the marketing things too, just real quick. But yeah. Go.
Okay, so most of this Rhonda has already covered, but I just want to highlight it because from an office standpoint, we go from having like 15 staff members to 2 on the weekends. And weekends are when you're really, I think, out there with clients. And so this is just going to help us help you, right? So if you need a buyer or listing. I do.
Manager, but Bill's assistant.
I do. I go and I show Bill's clients and I'm helping him write contracts. So I'm not always as available as maybe I could be. And Melissa's great, but she can update a flyer. She can't create one from scratch, which is why we have these timelines. Don't list on a weekend because we just don't have the capacity to make you successful. So if you need a buyer or listing packet, let us know the day before. A lot of you have supplemental materials that you need. So we will have it ready to go in your folder if you give us a little bit of notice, if someone calls you that day, don't run over to their house that day to do an assessment because you want to do some research and stuff like that. So
you want to go look at that stuff.
You want to go look at the stuff on HART, see when it sold last, so just these timelines are going to help you be successful.
And I would say 3 or 4 days minimum, maybe even a week.
Maybe even a week.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you're listing on a Thursday, 3 to 4 days is the week before. So don't get your pictures done Monday and then list on Thursday. You probably need a little more time. And then if there's a weekend, so
and
there's
also ask when trash day is. When you shoot photos, ask when trash day is. Because I've spent too many times in a listing appointment getting rid of trash up and down the trash up and down the street. You can't get enough of them out of the picture. Especially with pretty streets, so ask when trash day is.
I'm gonna change this to 5+ days, right? And then Rhonda, she said this earlier, start adding the information as soon as you have the listing to the MLS. You can save it as incomplete and you can have someone review it, check it for spelling errors, things like that. You can have your seller review the captions. It's all about setting yourself up for success. Now, this is one that's kind of a pet peeve of mine with the Supras and the showing instructions and things like that. You don't need to get the Supra before you take the photos because that means you probably have a sign and a Supra out there. And unless you are going to take the sign and the Supra off of the house for the photos, wait until the photos are done, right? So I put it on here as like when you're going to make it active on the MLS, make sure that your showing instructions are submitted beforehand and load them into Backagent. Because if we can't find the piece of paper or the email, we always check Backagent. Otherwise, we're going to be calling you at 8 a.m. on a Saturday because we can't find showing instructions. That being said, too, when you put your sign out there, make sure that we have the showing instructions before you put your sign out of there, because if it's not, it takes a little lag time for it to go active and then for us to see it in Appointment Manager. So people call all the time and they're like, oh, there's this house on this street. And we have to kind of like play detective because they never know the address. They didn't see the agent's name. And those are, they're like, no, there's not one on there. This is the only number on there. So we're trying to get you these leads, but we need as much information as possible to get those leads to you. So just help us help you, basically. We'll make all of this stuff available.
We'll on Backagent, so we can send it out.
For sure. And so the signs, put it, it says it never fails. Someone puts a sign out there. It's not active on MLS yet. It's not an off MLS listing. We know nothing about it. We get a phone call. They don't know the street number. They think it's at the corner of Julian and Yale, which don't even intersect. And there's no name. No, these are real calls, and so we're like here straighted because we know nothing about it. And so then, that's for someone to call these days, they're pretty interested. And that's someone that you're losing.
It could be a buyer.
It could be a buyer.
It could be a seller. They want to know what the price of that house is because they're thinking about selling their house and that one's comparable.
Yeah. So don't start.
So if the office doesn't know those kind of things, you could lose a listing you never even knew you had a chance.
Exactly. Also be strategic about your sign placement, because to pick on Rick, you will get a violation notice, and this says you can be charged $500. And Boulevard Realty is not paying this a day. And
what's his sign?
It was in the right of way.
Yeah.
So
between the sidewalk and the thing.
Yeah, between the sidewalk and the street. Don't put your sign there. if we see them there, we're going to ask you to move them. If you don't move it, you can pay the $500 a day, or you can just not put a sign out there. But if it's on a corner, put 2 signs up on the corner, or put the sign on the busier street or something. But if there's not a space to keep it out of the right of way, you'll have to put it sideways on the lot line, but then just put 2 up, you know? You can use more than 1 sign. If you have an issue with visibility, just don't put it in the right of way, because it makes you look like you don't know what you're doing, because someone sees a green tag on a boulevard sign, they're like, ooh, what are they doing?
So
It looks bad.
just the front yard on the side yard, but not past.
Not on the other side of the
Yes.
sidewalk,
That is green area.
off limits.
So as a general rule, the
Would you like?
sidewalk in the area,
Thank you so much.
past the sidewalk is unfortunately, and you cannot put it on.
Not even directional.
Not even directional.
But that's what I normally put.
Everybody does.
Everybody does.
But move them as soon
Well,
as you can.
And we'll touch on directionals in here in a second. So I want to go through this real quick for you guys. Okay, so if you're putting your listing on no later than Thursday, put your open house on no later than Thursday too. Because I mean, the earlier the better, because I feel like Wednesdays, people are on their computers checking out. Half of Houston has Fridays off, so they're on their computers then. So you really want it before Friday. You want to be set up for this weekend. You know, by Friday, I know what I'm doing this weekend. So get your stuff on before then, so it can be part of these potential buyers' plans. And then the open house sign for the weekend, I mean, put it up before that Friday as well. Like if you're going to hold it open Saturday, put it up Thursday after lunch. That way people driving home Thursday see it, people driving home Friday see it, and then Saturday or Sunday, you know, just get it out before the weekend actually starts, so that people in the neighborhood see it or driving past. You know, it's just extra exposure for you. And since you have it online already, you know, people, they might want to drive past the house and they see the sign, it validates like, cool, I'm going to come back and see it. You know, it all just helps build upon itself.
If they use the drive mode on the HAR app, it'll tell them, you know, there's an open house, here's the information.
Now,
Back to the sign question, and right away, what happens in Oak Forest with no sidewalks?
Only parts of Oak Forest don't have sidewalks, other parts do.
You know,
But I haven't had an issue with it, but you know, the sign police sometimes get their dander up and all of a sudden start writing.
because this
Issuing
is still
citations.
a right away.
Yeah.
there's still a right of way. I think
It's a
that
look
use your
on
best
Gardner itself.
judgment.
Gardner is the same way, but they certainly don't have
Gardner,
sidewalks.
yes.
Well, I see those ticket things or citations or whatever else more where there is a sidewalk than
Right.
where there isn't.
Right,
But
because-
just be conscious, I would just be conscious of that.
Right, like if your seller has a previous survey, you know where their property line is, just
Right.
estimate where the seller's
Yes.
property
I would
is and put it
think
there.
5 feet is probably good measurement from the curb into the
No,
front
that's
yard,
probably not enough.
because 3 and 2, right?
Probably 15 at least.
Who's gonna see that?
So when there's not a
Yeah.
sidewalk to judge by, use your best judgment, and then drive past and look at your sign so that if you get a sticker, you can move it. You know, like part of you should be checking on your listings quite frequently.
Yes.
Now, directional signs, you can put them out earlier than the day before. You can. But if you put them in the right of way, people will throw them away. If you put them on Heights Boulevard, they will throw them away. The best thing to do with directional signs is, you know, be courteous. Try not to put them, you know, like obscenely in someone's yard or something like that. You know, you try to make it to direct them to where it is from the busy streets, but pick them up within an hour of your open house. There is someone that has a Boulevard Realty directional listing at like TC Jester and 14th right now. 11th. So whoever's that is, please go pick it up, because if you leave them out, like putting them up before the open house, like a day or two, is better than leaving them out there all week, because then you know what they do? They start ignoring our directional signs because they're like, these are out all the time.
Yeah.
What does this even mean? Like they're
And it also
desensitized to
communicates
it,
that
that we're lazy.
Yep.
It straight up shows that you are a lazy lazy bad agent.
It's just
That's
like
what people.
opening that coffee shop up 15
Yeah.
minutes late. I mean, it's just.
Yeah,
it's-
and we get calls from neighbors complaining about the directional signs. So
Or they
Someone
just
in
throw 'em in the
Kohler and
trash.
Yale
Or they
for
throw 'em in the
2
trash.
months.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some, and also when you're a little bit different, whenever you've sold a house, don't forget your signs. We've had someone come to our office and throw a sign at us, a yard sign, because they couldn't get their agent to pick it up, and that's embarrassing to me. So just be courteous, you know, pick your stuff up as soon as you're done with it, you know, unless you have a conversation with the new buyers and say, yeah, you can leave it out there with the sold, you know, but just be courteous at the end of the day. And then
There's a sign in the yard at 934 Harvard. Inside their fence, it sold last year, like,
Oh my god.
who's
it sold like 8 months ago.
I'll look up whose it is.
Ah.
Let's look it up after the-
Let me make a note. And then touching on the feedback again too.
From the open house that you hold.
From the open house
somebody
here.
else,
If it's
yeah,
for
before you
Bill
put it
or your
out.
client, you know, you want to give them feedback by Tuesday, right? If you are going to give open house feedback to Bill, please don't give me one-word answers. We ask the questions in the little form, and we're trying to be better about sending it out to you on Sunday and then Monday, so that you get a reminder. And it's also a link in the open house update. So if you ever can't find it, you can always reference the open house update. But like, this is for the sellers. Like, and Mark is really good about it. He'll come to me and he'll be like, the heater didn't work. It was freezing, you know, like some of these homes that are vacant and stuff, we need to know what else is going on beyond just 3 people came by. You know, this is our chance to really get feedback. And if everyone came by and it was like, they all thought the house smelled funny, or if you thought the house smelled funny, we need to know that. Not just like, oh, it was a sunny day, we had 6 people. That tells me nothing. You know what I mean? So we want to go above and beyond with our level of service, and feedback is the easiest way to do that. So just make sure that it's
practice for what
worthwhile.
you're gonna do for your listing.
Yeah, for sure.
Just think about what you wanna tell your particular client.
And then these are just 2 reminders. If there are things that you need, like supplemental branding, like Jim was mentioning his flyer for the 15 things for Brooksmith, if you're going to need it for the weekend, let us know during the week so that we can make sure it's printed. Because usually Fridays, we spend the whole afternoon just printing. And those are reprints, not creating them, just printing. So it just takes a little bit of time. And then just remember that if you need something, the best thing to do is to email office@yourboulevard.com. You can email Selena directly, you can email me directly, but you know, unless you're checking the back agent calendar to know when someone is and isn't working, the safest bet is to just email office, because it goes to whoever is working that day. So just
email office and marketing if you can't remember.
yeah, if you can't remember who, email us both and we'll figure it out. But because marketing doesn't work on weekends, and sometimes I'll get an email forwarded from Thomas that was sent to marketing on Saturday morning, and you know, he shouldn't even have to be checking his email because it's his day off, and then it's to make a new flyer that I don't know how to do, so I'm not a graphic designer. And so, you know, we're going to do our best, but it's all
But you may end
about
up with
setting
that
yourself
one-page
for
flyer,
success.
may not look
Yeah,
great
might not look as pretty
because you didn't plan in advance.
yeah, but anyways, just real quick, that's all that I wanted to touch on.
And we have some other things that I kind of put together, the little table, kind of like this, that had certain requests and the time deals that they take.
How do I get to it?
That we can
Is this a
we send
touch
it out to you guys. You can ask me questions if you want.
And then once it opens, you'll have to drag it over.
Aaron, was there anything in particular you wanted to talk about?
Maybe next week.
All right.
Maybe next week.
Yeah.
So remember, you're small business
I hope
owners.
that's helpful.
You got
And we'll
to
share all
plan
this stuff.
listings, get buyers, listings, get listings.
I think it's going to be a crazy spring. I always go by the sheer volume of kind of like, because I just see every single phone call and email Bill gets or whatever. I think it's going to be a wildly competitive spring. If you have a listing, I think there's going to be so much stuff coming onto the market. Bill's probably going to put on a dozen listings, you know, from now until about March 15th or something crazy like that. And so if that's just any indication, I think it's going to be very, very competitive. I think we have to be really intentional and plan very, very well about putting our listings online, because I just don't think that our audience, the buyers, have the imagination, the patience, and there's always going to be something that looks better or stands out. And the buyer agents too. I mean, if we're not, by the time it hits their hot sheet that this thing in their area they know and they scrutinize, if it doesn't look its best, then they're just not going to show it. It's just that simple.
Yeah, so kind of reviewing these things and giving some thought to them, put them in, create your own Google Drive or folder out there, gather them together, what it is that you want. Go through, talk to people about if there's some of the other photographers on there that, other than Mike Wilcox and TK Images, if you have questions on some of the others who's used them, that kind of stuff, talk to some of us. So you're preparing yourself. You're preparing yourself so that when those things come at you, you're ready to talk about it and ready to put it into action. All right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And role playing tomorrow. So if anyone wants to
Yay.
practice listing appointments or how to talk to a buyer or what to say at open house, Rhonda's going to be here leading that.
Yeah. It's going to be interactive. You're going to actually do it.
Is it at 10?
I can talk
Tomorrow at
into
10.
it. We may do one for you so you can see what it looks like. But then I'm gonna have you guys, pair up and do and what I'm probably gonna do is send you the script, at least one of the scripts that we're gonna do tomorrow, send it to you in advance. So you have some homework, and that is review it, take a look at it, read through it. When I say read through it like 10 times. One of the things that had us do with that Tom Ferry training was when we read through that stuff, they had us read through it like 4, 5, 6 times. And and say it out loud to yourself. Read through it, silently or however you read in the beginning, and then read it out loud to yourself 3 or 4 times in a row before you come here tomorrow, so that you're familiar with what the words are. So then what you can concentrate on is where you want to put the emphasis and how you want to get the interaction with the person that you're role playing with. We're going to do this. You're actually going to pair up and do this together.
Another, I've noticed some things that help to get your, before you role play, sit in front of your laptop and turn on the camera.
Oh, yeah.
And read your script. And then see what it looks like after you're done. Yeah.
Oh, talking to a mirror. I know it sounds stupid, but like.
Yeah, see, you can rewind the mirror.
Talking to the mirror,
So
talking to your phone.
really, when you look at the camera and you're talking, like you're looking at your customer, and then when you replay it, then you're seeing what your customer's gonna see.
Yeah, I think Tom Carey said 10, 15 years ago, practice your scripts in the mirror.
Yeah, I used to do that with like
That
everything.
you can
I do it every
see
day.
your body
Every day.
language and your facial
Just to get out of
expressions,
bed, yeah.
everything you're doing when you're talking to your client, that you can see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we have pros.
See you at 3.
So I think you can set photos.
If you want to.
No, we do.
Yeah.
It should be quick and easy. I think we're
All right.
that we're to the point where like we thought it was going to be more in depth than it actually was. Because Kenny.
Probably, we're going to do a series
Yeah, we
of
took an
these, so